All right, buckle up, listeners, because we are diving headfirst into a pool of headlines.
Yeah.
The kind that makes you go, hold on, what's going on in the world today?
That's right, we are. And let me tell you, today's choice is a spicy one.
It really is. We're talking about texto pegado,
Uh,
that awesome Spanish language news thing you're always on about.
yeah. It's concise, it's global, and it always has these little nuggets of, well, intrigue, to say the least.
Okay, so first up, we've got Colombian President Gustavo Petro throwing some serious shade and accusations at Elon Musk. Like, whoa, calling him pro-Nazi. That's not something you see every day, right?
Right, and suggesting that Musk might try to censor him on X. It's bold, no doubt.
Definitely bold.
But you have to consider the context here, right? I mean, Colombia's history, it's got figures like Pinochet, a dictator, human rights abuses, the whole nine yards. Petro's words, they tap into some deep anxieties about free speech, about censorship, and those anxieties, they have deep roots.
That's a really good point. It's like this whole thing makes you think, how much influence do political leaders try to have on these massive social media companies? Like, what does it all mean for the future of free speech online? Because, let's face it, we live online now.
We really do. And it's a debate that's not going away. It's only going to get more and more complex as technology keeps changing things up, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Speaking of intense situations, how about we move from the digital world to something a little more, well, let's just say a lot more real world. We're talking about the alleged assassination attempt on former President Trump. Yeah, that's a heavy one.
Seriously.
Yeah.
The FBI detained a guy, and he had a rifle near Trump's golf course. I mean, that's just crazy to even think about, right?
It really is. And, regardless of how it all plays out legally or whatever, it feels like a symptom of something much bigger going on right now, don't you think?
Totally. It's like, where do we even begin to unpack this? Especially with another election cycle coming up. I mean, this incident, it just highlights the really high tensions, the potential for violence in politics today. It's scary, honestly.
It's scary and it's dangerous. And it's not just in the U.S., it's global. That's true. This kind of relates to our next story, actually. Dixo Pagado is saying that the French government is advising people to avoid traveling to Venezuela unless it's absolutely necessary. And this is coming after the arrest of several foreigners who were accused of trying to, well, destabilize the country.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely some unrest there.
Okay, so Venezuela. We've got to rewind a bit, right? Years of political chaos, economic freefall, the whole thing. These arrests, it doesn't matter if you see them as legit or a crackdown on anyone who disagrees with the government. It all points to a really, really volatile situation.
Yeah, and it's like we're seeing this kind of thing more and more. It's not just Venezuela. Think about another country. For instance, they've had their share of unrest lately, too. It's a global trend, isn't it, this whole thing with political and economic instability?
It is. It's a cocktail of, well, you name it. It's economic inequality, governments that are struggling, people are angry. It's something we need to be paying attention to.
Absolutely. And now, let's shift gears geographically. We're heading over to the Middle East, where Texto Pagado is reporting that air raid sirens were going off in Israel after a missile was launched from Yemen.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? And it gets crazier. Netanyahu's already talking about retaliation, and the Houthi rebels, they're the group that's been fighting against Yemen's government and their allies.
Yeah.
Well, they're claiming responsibility.
Oh, boy.
And they're saying they used a new ballistic missile, like a new one, long-range stuff. It's kind of chilling when you think about it.
It is. I mean, the whole region is like a tinderbox as it is. And now you add a new missile system to the mix. It's a recipe for disaster. The relationship between Israel and Yemen, crazy complicated. The Houthi rebels, wild card for sure. Yeah. It's just, this has bad news written all over it.
It's true. Things can change so quickly.
Yeah.
It's scary how fast things can spiral out of control on the world stage.
Okay.
But okay, let's end on a slightly more hopeful note. Texto Pagado wraps up with some good news for a change. Germany and Uzbekistan have signed a migration agreement.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Right. It's meant to help with the labor shortages they've been seeing in Germany, and hopefully it'll mean some better opportunities for Uzbek workers, too. So there's a little bit of light there.
There is. Now, whether it'll actually work the way they hope, that's the million-dollar question. Germany definitely needs workers, though. So in theory, this could be good for everyone involved, assuming it's done right. We'll see.
We will. But it's definitely a good reminder that even with all the conflict and the craziness happening around the world, there are still people trying to make things better, trying to find some common ground.
Totally.
Well, that was quite a ride. From political drama and potential assassination attempts to international incidents, and finally, a glimmer of hope with that agreement. I feel like I need to sit down after all that.
Me too. And you know what? It makes you wonder, doesn't it? All these events, are they really as separate as they seem? Or are there these hidden threads connecting them all? Something to think about.
Something to think about indeed. And on that note, we'll leave it there for today. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.